Welcome to The Prize Inside. The Prize Inside. A chiropractor's journey in everyday holistic health and vitality. Here, your host, Dr. Jeremy Myers, delves into the remarkable journeys of everyday people who have embraced the path to health and healing. Through his practice, Dr. Jeremy encounters inspiring stories of profound transformation and the power of true healing within each of us. Stay tuned as we discuss various holistic topics and unlock the healing potential that lies within us all.
Hello, guys, and welcome to another Whole Health Weekly. This is episode 19, which is kind of cool. So I want to welcome you all to our tonight's episode is always about the latest health topics of the week. And so I think I found some interesting ones. I think we'll have a good time with this. So as we go, one thing we start before all this is that I always do what they call there's 33 chiropractic principles. And so because we're on week 19, I'm doing chiropractic principle 19. So this won't take very long because it's a very quick and very easy to understand principle, but it's important. So they're all important and they all have their little things. It's kind of like, the 10 commandments. There's some words and they're very powerful words, but they're pretty simple to understand sometimes. So the 33 chiropractic principles are no different. So this is chiropractic principle number 19. If you haven't done the other 18 prior to, remember there are videos that we go through a lot of these things. Okay. So we go through one every week. We go through one of the chiropractic principles. So this one's a little simpler, but they're a little more complex going back in. So the 19th principle is, and remember these organic matter. So that's what the title of the principle is, organic matter. The material of the body is of a living thing is organized matter. So basically what they're saying is that the material or the atoms, cells, and molecules of the human body are organized in a way that allows us to be who we are. And that's an important thing because it proves that there's an intelligence within us and that everything has a reason. Everything has this intelligence that allows us to function, allows us our lungs to breathe without us thinking about it, our heart to beat, all of them, these little tiny cells in there. And so when we have this organized matter, it very much proves that there is an intelligence within us. And that is the thing that a lot of times in the medical world, in the sick care model, we don't necessarily go by. We go by stuff that happens in a lab. We take this lab piece and you have this organized material, but you've separated from other organized materials. So how do you know if what you're doing is correct, right? And so that's why we ended up with the sick care model where we go after the symptoms of things rather than the cause, okay? So that's all I want to hit up on that today. I know it's a gorgeous day in Michigan out there, so I might not have too many people watching tonight, but you can watch the recording as well. So, and I'm getting up there. Oh, before we start, I want to make sure in here you get to my channel. I'm up to like 36 subscribers on the Prize Inside on Rumble, which is really awesome. So let's put that in there. Oops. There we go. And then the other one I want to make sure you guys get is you can listen into anything. Spotify is another one. I don't know where people listen to. Let me look up Spotify real quick, actually. Spotify. I want to get you the link to that. So in Spotify is our podcast. And this is our latest. Yeah, this one's really good. So one of our latest is like herbs of the muscle and bone. So if you miss that on Sunday night, make sure you check that out on Rumble or, like those kind of things. But we go through the herbs and supplementation for muscles and bones, which is really, really cool. So those are some places that you can actually download, record anytime you miss these. I want to make sure that the content is accessible to all because I really, really like doing this. And it gets me two things. One, hopefully I get better at it each time. And it gives me that practice of understanding, what I'm saying out there. Right. But then the other one is just to get it available to people because knowledge is power in this day and age. And the 36, subscribers, hopefully we're getting actual good information because there's so much crap information out there. It's insane. Yeah, I'll tell you this before we start. One of the reasons why Whole Health Weekly is I wanted to do this was because of how many patients would come in just confused on really cool natural ways to do things. I noticed it years ago when turmeric came on the market. And that's a trend that's come and gone a long time ago. But turmeric's still around. It's a very good supplement. It has it's a great herb. It's you have curcuminoids. So these curcuminoids actually reduce inflammation throughout your body. One of the bad parts though is that we didn't know, we would have people taking $60, $80 supplements of turmeric when one, it was cheaper than that. A lot of times you could get a really good supplement for much cheaper than that. But these, let's say a website would pull you in. The other is they wouldn't tell you how to take it correctly. So with turmeric, I'll give you this one tonight. So if with turmeric and these curcuminoids, what happens is they're not as what I call like digestible. So they have a harder time, getting digested in the digestive tract. So one of the tricks to the whole thing on turmeric, ginger, all those is to take a lot of it in the beginning, like kind of like you're building up oil. So you want to get it into your system. Once you get it into your system, so I'll tell a patient take 6 or 8 a day for like 3 to 4 days. And then once they build it up into their system, now you have this, now you can use 1 to 2 a day. What was happening is they were saying, oh, turmeric, anti-inflammatory, it's great, fantastic. Take 1 to 2 a day at, $80 a bottle. And you're going, well, you didn't tell them number one to how much to take, which is what one of the problems is like it needed this therapeutic dose. And the reason you needed that was because turmeric doesn't digest well. So it digests slowly and it digests with fats. So a lot of times the turmeric wouldn't get into your system as well as it should. And then people lost faith in the turmeric. But then the people I showed how to do it, where you're like 6 to 8 a day for like 3 to 4 days, they're noticing a huge change, right? And so that's kind of what, Whole Health Weekly started with, because it's one of those where there's some good information. It's just, half the information doesn't get you where you want to go. So that there is that. All right. So we always start our conversation with the TikTok corner, which is my office manager, Gina, always looks up like what is trending on TikTok that could be on there. And this one's interesting. Well, almost every time she sends me one that's super interesting, but this one is called silent reflux. And I had to look it up because it's that new, right? So let me look. So I'm going to give you the definition. Silent reflux, also known as laryngopharyngeal reflux, is a condition where the stomach acid flows back into the esophagus and reaches the throat, irritating the larynx and the pharynx. Unlike the typical acid reflux or GERD, it often doesn't cause heartburn, making it silent. Symptoms, though, include chronic throat clearing, hoarseness, a feeling of a lump in the throat, excessive mucus, or a sore throat. It's caused by factors like weak esophageal sphincters, diet, lifestyle triggers, such as overeating or lying down after meals. That's fat. That's interesting. Diagnosis may involve endoscopy or pH monitoring. Treatment typically includes dietary changes, avoiding acidic or spicy foods, lifestyle adjustments, elevating the head during sleep, and sometimes medications like a proton pump inhibitor. If untreated, it can lead to complications like vocal cord damage or esophageal inflammation. So, this is just a definition, and we're going to talk about that. So, it sounds like it's very similar to the GERD or the regular esophageal reflux, but just in a little thing where it doesn't give you the stomach acid problem where the digestive irritation there. So it gives you more throat issues. Okay. So there's a few things in there, and let's break down how a holistic guy looks at that. Okay. So let's break down the definition. So the symptoms, let's look at the symptoms because you got to start somewhere. So throat clearing, hoarseness or lump in the throat, excessive mucus or sore throat. They think it's because of weak esophageal sphincters. Well, that's interesting. Why is the esophageal sphincters weak? So I'm going to break it down in my holistic brain, right? If my esophageal sphincters are weak, which is the things that those sphincters that kind of push things down through and get it to your stomach, get your food down to your stomach and all those kind of things. How could we, if that's weak, how is that possible? It's just weak. Possibly it's not. Maybe, ready? Maybe the nervous system, the spinal area that goes through the esophageal sphincters is not working properly. So, let's do. All right. Well, I'll keep talking. So that could be a thing, right? I'm looking up something. I should probably know this by heart, but I do not. All right. Okay. So I was hoping. Sorry. Okay. So it doesn't give a great answer, but what if there's nervous system issues like in your spine? So according to the information, where do those spinal sphincters start their nerve supply? It has to be in your spine, right? So what could that mean? You could have a vertebrae problem, a vertebral misalignment that a chiropractor would take care of, could potentially help that esophageal sphincter get unweak, the lower neck, the upper back between your shoulders, any of those things. How about the lumbar vertebrae? Some of those lumbar vertebrae are attached to your gut, right? So you can have, a lot of these different areas affected. So one of the ways a chiropractor would approach it is find the vertebrae that are out of alignment and adjust them and see if anything happens. Because if there's a weak esophageal sphincter, then a lot of times getting adjusted could really stimulate that nervous system that potentially could do something, right? So that could be an answer before we go into like drugs that kind of just mask the situation, right? So then let's go into the next part. So they think it's either these weak esophageal sphincters, which is what kind of pushes the stuff down, your diet, which we'll talk about, and lifestyle, overeating, lying down past meals. I'll tell you about that one in a minute. But so think about lifestyle factors. So if you eat like crap and your gut bacteria is off, or your gut digestion area is off, like before, like a lot of things, if you fix your gut microbiome, if you get your gut in the healthiest way it possibly can, a good pH, all those things, you can really reverse a ton of this a ton of this stuff. The problem with acid reflux is the pH, or the balance of the juices that break down everything, are off. Okay. Whether in my world, they can be either way. They can be too acidic or too basic. It has to be perfect, right? It can't be too acidic or too basic. And if you remember back in chemistry class, basic is just as damaging as acidic, right? It's just a different situation. And so what we do is make sure that we're looking at all of those things, because sometimes it can be even more dangerous a little bit on being more basic. And so possibly, maybe the silent reflux is actually your stomach being more basic. And all of these happen when your gut microbiome is off base. Okay. So the only way you have a perfect gut microbiome is to have the right pH. So it's one of those things. And a lot of people are understanding this. That's why we started doing pH test strips for your gut stuff. What? All right. Sorry. What is the... I'm just looking for other causes in there. Okay, so I think that's it. And then the reason they say lying down is because if those sphincters aren't working, then you're not pushing, gut. The sphincters are to push the food down into the area that it needs to be digested in, right? So I just remember this stuff, Mr. Wizard. If anybody remembers that, I'm kind of aging myself at that point. But Mr. Wizard one time took this kid, and I thought this was one of the coolest science experiences he ever did. He took a kid, put him on his head, stood him on his head, and then had him eat an apple. And the apple went up because of these sphincters, right? These sphincters kind of push that apple up into the stomach, kind of against gravity, if that makes sense. So I always thought that was fascinating, because when you think of eating, and all of us do, you think once you eat, it just falls into the stomach. That's not really how it goes. And so you have to think of your esophagus, and all that is like this really good muscle that you have to get down into your gut. And that's one of the problems we have, is because we think once it goes in, we don't really think about it, and it somehow makes it down into the stomach. And that's a big thing. Now, with the people that I have acid reflux, there is a technique or move that chiropractors know that can help with some acid reflux stuff. It doesn't cure it, but a lot of times I've seen over time that we've really, really helped that. And so it's almost like it's not a massage move, because it doesn't feel good, but the results are really good. And one of the things I've learned is, like with acid reflux, especially, let's see if I can find a example I can give you. Okay. So how it works, let me do this. See if this will make sense to you guys. Okay. So acid reflux essentially is, think of your diaphragm, this piece of paper, and I'm doing it like for my podcasters, I'm holding a piece of paper just flat with both hands. With that, there's a hole in the middle of the paper. So there's this rip right in the middle of the paper. And so all of your esophagus and a lot of neurology goes through this hole. Okay. So that would be considered your diaphragm. It's kind of like, your diaphragm's kind of like like a hat that goes over the top of all your intestines and everything else below your lungs. And it keeps the diaphragm keeps the lungs separate from being near the digestive system, right? So, but you got to have stuff pass through this thing. So you have basically a hole in your hat that would allow the esophagus and your aorta and all these different nervous systems too, like your vagus nerve. That's another one that goes through that hole. So you have this thing, and you got this hole that goes right through the middle of the paper. Okay. And so what occurs sometimes is acid reflux is you get what they call a hiatal hernia. So you get this hiatal hernia, which is this hole gets too big based on damage. A lot of people that had babies, they'll have like this hole gets like wider. Okay. And so once that occurs, some of your intestine or will cross into the chamber above the diaphragm. Once that occurs, that causes discomfort and irritation to that whole area. So one of the things I do with my what they call acid reflux or my hiatal hernia people, because they feel very, very similar, is I'll make them eat standing up. Now, the reason we do that is because when we sit and we have a little extra around our waist, we're actually jamming that extra intestine into the next cavity up, the lungs that go up in there. Okay. And so that's one reason why if you make the move, one thing we do is make them stand up and eat. The results are pretty good. If the damage to that hole isn't so bad, right? So if you had a huge baby, let's say you had a 10-pounder or something, and it really tore up when you sat and you ate, it jammed up into that area of the hole. Sometimes it takes a lot longer to improve the damage there, but it is the hiatal hernia and the acid reflux are very similar. With that said, if you can get the acid, balanced in your gut and get your gut microbiome in the right pH, which is about the right pH is usually right between 1.5 and 3. Acidity. So that's more acidic than it is basic, but we want to make sure that kind of situation is happening. Okay. So hopefully I didn't bore you, but I think silent reflux could be a thing. Just watch for it. It's more throat, horsey, not in your throat. No acid, no gut, heartburn, right? But with a hiatal hernia or acid reflux, you can get this heartburn situation. Okay. So that was a fun trip down TikTok lane. So that was good. Okay. So now I'm going to give you guys the topics of this week and we'll talk about them holistically. Okay. Oh, I like this one. I was just doing a discussion on this. So this is a big one this week, grounding and earthing. Okay. From cancer to chronic conditions, people are buzzing about the healing power of connecting with the earth. Think barefoot walks or grounding mats. And there's a lot of stories of patients finding relief through nature in grounding, returning to the natural medicines of the world. I love this. Grounding and barefoot is fantastic. There are a lot of claims, right? And a lot of claims based on a lot of new products that they could sell you too. So you just got to be careful of that because this one, I don't know if you necessarily need like, products to do this. It's basically barefoot in nature, right? Going out in your grass, being barefoot. I love being barefoot in the garden, like when we start up. Making sure you get in there and like just allow your body to kind of get used to that, and it can be a fantastic connector. And now that it's getting nice out, I'm going to do it more often. But not only is it good for this natural connection, because remember, like if there's an innate intelligence to us and we have this whole think about the energy, right? So we have this, all these different energies, and it goes like about 5 feet away from us. We're electric battery. We are a car battery, basically. We have this electronic charge. That's why, the microbiome is so important. That's why they call them your chakras or your energy sphere, is so important. And with going barefoot, you're connecting to the nature's energy center, which is the earth. Okay. So that's why that's important. And it works really, really well. Okay. So grounding. So that's what it is. It's going out in nature barefoot. Now there's these new things like grounding mats. And I don't know. I think I've see that they're good. There's no real studies out there that say, oh man, these are like the best. And that's okay. The studies don't matter too much to me. It's how you feel on them. And they're not that expensive to even try them, but people have been raving about them and just holistically. But here's another reason to do barefoot, though. With strong feet comes a strong foundation. With that strong foundation leads to strong knee musculature, leads to strong hip musculature, leads to strong back musculature. So I have some what I call my hippie patients. One guy, he's 83, never had a hip replacement in his life, never had a knee replacement, but this guy would live barefoot if you want it, as he goes. And yeah, you get some wear and tear and some arthritis and those kind of things. And that still can happen with overuse. But by having strong feet, which is very rare nowadays because we've supported our shoes to the nth degree, that protects those knees, that protects those hips. It's fantastic. So just remember that. Okay. Ultra processed foods are under fire, which we kind of know. Hopefully y'all are getting this stuff out of our diet. They're getting hammered right now for the first time in my 60 million years on the earth. We talk about whole foods all the time, but ultra processed are finally getting recognized like they should. In America, there are 20 approved ingredients in our food that are not allowed in other countries. It's ridiculous. Like literally, they found all these different things in the studies that these other countries did, but somehow magically we didn't find that. We didn't find it at all. And that's what we're going to get into in a minute, like the some of the other good articles. Energy healing's been cool. There's a lot of things you hear about because MIT and the NIH are bringing up this energy healing. So energy healing like Reiki, magnetics, frequencies, sound healing. There's so many good ones out there. So it's always never a bad thing to practice, like as you go. There's all these really cool energies out there, these frequencies that are helping with people's biofields a lot of times. And the amount of improvement you can do on those is fantastic. Reiki's an energy one. A lot of people, Reiki people or masters or therapists, they will kind of be feeling for that biofield above the person. There's actually no touching in that one. And it's kind of that interaction between those two biofields. I've heard Tibetan bowls. It's a very, really distinct frequency of sound. The sound, I've seen them done, and it's fantastic. It makes you relax like right away. It makes sense that there would be some healing properties to the healing properties of sound in a really great frequency, right? And we can go into that one. That one you can get deep in the weeds, but it is a fantastic world of, why do you feel so good if you have go to a church with bells? Think about that. Isn't that interesting? The sound frequency is what you're doing, right? That stuff blows my mind. And at the same time, I know it does some healing. Because we use ultrasound. Did you know that that's sound waves? So we use ultrasound in medical, but it's a higher, kind of more destructive way to do it. So it's trying to break up scar tissue. So ultrasound has that intention. So if we use sound waves to do that, then how can we not use other sound waves to heal us or give energy to cells? Very interesting, right? So I'm glad that's making a trend. All right. And now for the rest of the story. So now what we're going to do. So those are the weekly health trends. I think they're pretty awesome. But I want to go into the articles by Dr. Mercola that are the latest and greatest this week. So let's go into that and we'll read some of these guys. All right. Ugh. This one's kind of tough, but we got to hear it. So, 1 in 3 children now faces chronic health conditions. 1 in 3 children in the United States, and this is by Dr. Mercola. So, 1 in 3 children in the United States now lives with a chronic health condition that will follow them into adulthood. Asthma, ADHD, autism, and prediabetes are rising steadily each year, making it harder for children to succeed in school and life. Children from low-income families face the highest risk, with poverty and lack of stable employment directly tied to chronic health problems. That's actually very, very true. Environmental toxins, poor diet, and stress are major drivers of these conditions. Early detection and prevention through clean eating, better sleep, sunlight, and stress management are key to protecting your child's futures. Let's keep reading this article. I think it's important. So, researchers have documented a dramatic rise in pediatric onset chronic conditions over the last 20 years, which is crazy. The most common examples include asthma, attention deficit disorder, and prediabetes, which develops into full diabetes over time, especially when you get it as a young kid, leading to an increased risk later of heart disease, nerve damage, and kidney failure. In the United States, nearly 1 in 3 kids is living with this chronic condition. If you think this issue only impacts their childhood, think again. Children do not outgrow these. That's the problem. Okay, so let's talk about this. When you hear chronic condition in a child, we're in trouble. We're in trouble as a society. And I wish you can't sugarcoat it. You can't sugarcoat that this is a situation. Now, one of the problems is definitely the ultra processed stuff, the foods and these things that got sucked into our world based on whatever the situation was, where we thought that this was healthy or we just wanted to make a profit or whatever. And so the cheaper the food, a lot of times the more ultra processed it is. And it's troubling because it's the ones with the lower income. Now, so one of the things that happens is like we say, oh, I can't afford it, right? Or any of those kind of things. Here's a little known fact, though. And part of it is if you knew what it was, part of it is like our lack of priority in the health space. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. We can say all day, this is just my opinion, we can say all day, oh, it's because organic food is so expensive. Is it? Compared to this, you're spending the exact same amount. You might get less food, right? But here's a fun fact, and it's true. We can almost live with like 15% of what we eat currently. And so, like you could cut out the food that you eat in a day by 85%, and you would survive just fine, right? Your body'd have to get used to it, but you could get down to 15% of what you're eating currently, right? So if I drop your grocery bill down to 15%, of what you're doing, could you not afford the more organic, natural stuff? Even if I said 50%, right? So one of the things we have to get over is understanding that we don't need 3 huge meals a day, right? And constantly snacking on stuff that doesn't mean anything. And that's one of our problems societally wise. We want to say, oh, it's, the organic food's too expensive. And that's true. It's too pricey. But each person, even in a low income, seeds aren't that expensive. A garden with a shovel isn't that bad. So at least grow your own that way, right? I mean, everybody's got a yard. Typically, if you're in an apartment, maybe that's a problem. Maybe you ask your apartment complex if you can grow a garden, right? There's a lot of options there. And it's just, the problem isn't necessarily that. That's what I call the the first thing we think about, oh, it's everything's expensive, right? No, it's our priority. Like everybody has money for a cell phone, right? And the kids on low income, each kid has a cell phone. Like, how is that possible? If it's like, but that's the priority. See, that's the difference. And people don't understand, like, if we don't make health a priority for our kids, then they don't have the natural ability or the innate ability to understand that later. And so they'll keep that pattern going. So we keep saying, oh man, it's the lack of this and the lack of that. It's all there. And we have to start unfortunately, we got to start taking actual responsibility for how we're educating people too. Right? It should be no, that stuff is garbage, right? That stuff is garbage. This is a better option. Let's do it, right? Because I don't want you to suffer with diabetes that kills off and gets your leg chopped off later in your life. Imagine that. We're setting these kids up with chronic illness when they're young. Some people are like, oh, yeah, we always jokingly, oh, he has ADHD. Well, that's fine. But how does that kid manage that stuff so that he can actually be successful in life? Chronic conditions are no joke. We don't want to we would never do this with cancer. Let's say, good example. We didn't say, all right, oh, this kid, oh man, he has childhood cancer, and just kind of move on and feed him junk, right? Wouldn't we do something different? If a kid has childhood cancer, wouldn't we start focusing on his health a little bit more? Well, we don't with chronic diseases. And I'm telling you right now, pre-diabetic is scarier to me a lot of times than the cancers, because of how damaging it will be over that time frame. So just remember that one, because that one is near and dear to my heart. And kind of you don't know, right? So we don't know some of these chemicals that are in all these different foods. We're starting to wake up to that with these the dyes. We're going to talk about that in another article coming up. But remember the dyes. That's a big deal. I'm a little butthurt and angry about the dyes. So we'll get into that in an article in a minute. Oh yeah, that's the next one. Are artificial food dyes safe to eat? This is another one by Dr. Mercola. Yeah, I think he just does. He takes articles and then kind of discerns them. Okay. So listen to this stuff. Over 36,000 U.S. processed foods contain Red 40, a petroleum-based dye, while 8,000 products include Red 3, a known carcinogen that causes thyroid tumors in animals. Artificial dyes like Red 40, Yellow 5, Yellow 6, Blue 1 are linked to behavioral issues in children, including hyperactivity, restlessness, and attention difficulties. The FDA, okay, here's where I'm starting to see it, banned Red 3 from cosmetics in 1990, but only banned it from food in January of this year. Food manufacturers have until 2027 to remove it completely. Europe requires warning labels on foods with certain dyes, prompting companies to use natural alternatives, while the same product in the U.S. continue using petroleum-based dyes without warnings. Of course. Why not? Sounds good. Great idea. Parents can protect their family by reading ingredient lists, choosing dye-free alternatives, and replacing processed foods with whole foods and using natural colorants like turmeric and beet juice. Okay, so here's where I got an issue. This is soapbox time, so I remember seeing a video of what they were talking about with the red dye causing major behavioral problems in this child. Now, that video got pulled or scratched or whatever, but it was a kid in a room. Yeah, it was a very white room with one door, and they said, read this book. And the child was reading the book, no problem. There was nothing. He had a desk and a chair, and he's just reading the book in this room, quiet as a mouse. They gave him red dye and said, read the book. He's trying to break the windows. He's trying to break out of the room in seconds. Okay. It caused a major problem. They banned it out of food, I believe. I remember thinking, oh, yeah, they banned it after that horrible thing back in the late 90s. I thought they had banned it. Little did I know, I was giving my kid the same crap I saw on this channel. I had no idea. I was like, holy crap. This one angered me so much. But it happens. I'm not going to name drugs or anything, but there was a certain drug on the market that they took off the market because it was hurting people a lot. And then they figured out a way to put it back on the market. Blows my mind. They find these huge problems like, I don't know, death, destruction, whatever. Take it off the market for a minute. Pay some lobbyists to get, bypass it. Maybe change its name. Maybe call it Magenta. Whatever it is, to kind of switch the narrative so that they can use the same product. That's frustrating. Remember what I just said. These are petroleum-based dyes in food to make them look colorful, okay? Red 3 was banned from cosmetics. You don't even eat cosmetics. But Red 3 is a known carcinogen. They know it. And it's in 8,000 products that we eat, causing thyroid tumors. That's interesting. Okay. How about Red 40? Red 40 was, they found huge things with yellow 5, yellow 6, blue 1, all these oil-based supplement or dyes cause major behavioral hyperactivity, restlessness, attention deficit situations. Dear Lord. Like, we're putting that in our food to make it colorful so that the kids want it. That's why it's there. It's not because it tastes better. Oh, that one. Sorry, guys. That's 2 weeks I've gotten on my soapbox. This one bothers me, though. I was duped myself. I thought they had taken some of this off the market and made something better. But instead, they snuck it back on the market. And now we're 2025 and we can't figure out an alternative to make your stuff different color that isn't going to cause cancer. Okay. So anyway, I get all right. So that one was that one. Right. It's so pumped that we're actually doing something about it, which is great. Ooh, this one's good. So this is our next one. And then I'll do one more after this. And then we will call it a night, I think. Okay. This one's an interesting one. I haven't, this is okay. So we're going to learn some stuff together. This one's by Dr. Mercola as well. Poor oral health increases migraine and body pain in women. Interesting. Women with chronic migraines and body-wide pain were far more likely to have poor oral health, with over half falling into the lowest oral health categories in a new study. Now, it's not saying everybody with a migraine has bad oral health, guys. That's not what it's saying. It's just saying that they had some bad oral health. Specific oral bacteria. So this is the biggest thing. So let's watch for this. So specific oral bacteria, including what they call Mycoplasma salivarium and Gardnerella vaginalis, were significantly more common in women who reported frequent migraines and widespread pain. Harmful oral microbes, think gut bacteria, right? So your gut microbiome, really, it's different. There are different environments. That your gut microbiome has 40 trillion. It has different bacteria than what they're talking about. But your oral in your mouth your mouth is the beginning of the gut bacteria. So if your saliva in your mouth is off, then you can have issues that would lead down the digestive tract, right? So harmful oral microbes don't stay in your mouth. Once gum tissue is inflamed, these bacteria then enter your bloodstream. disrupt your immune system, and can trigger systemic pain. A less diverse oral microbiome was found in women with migraines and gut pain, making it easier for pain-triggering bacteria to dominate and inflame nerve pathways. Interesting. Okay. So let's go. So basically, if you have a bad oral microbiome, oral mouth microbiome, it would lead to more pain and migraines. That's interesting. Let's see. What can we do about it? Let's go into what can we do. So I don't try to do the whole thing. Da-da-da. Yeah, you guys don't need to know each one of those. Okay, so let's get into some solutions for this. So there's a ton of information on this oral health. They're saying a lot of times hormonally too, like in menopause. That was part of the other part I was reading there. That in menopause, your oral microbiome changes as well. So it could be even more important after menopause. Okay, so just remember that. So these are the suggestions from this article. Clean your mouth without destroying the good bacteria. If you're using an antiseptic mouthwash daily, stop. Remember that kills off it cuts the oral gut or oral microbiome. It kills everything, including the beneficial bacteria that help protect your health. Switch to a more natural approach. Brush your teeth and tongue with a gentle fluoride-free toothpaste at least twice daily, and skip alcohol-based rinses. Use a tongue scraper daily. Okay, some people could do that. Your tongue is a microbial reservoir, and removing buildup helps reduce the load of pain-promoting bacteria. And you must floss regularly. Okay. So that makes sense. Here's another cool idea. Try oil pulling with coconut oil. So coconut oil is an antibacterial, antiviral, and oil pulling has been found to reduce gingivitis and plaque, significantly lowering plaque index scores compared to a control group. So look at what oil pulling is. I think it's just basically where you gargle with the oil and then spit it out, and it helps kind of pull the bad gut bacteria out. I think that's what that is. I try to stay up on every holistic thing, but there's some stuff. There's a lot. Regular dental checkups is a good idea, especially if you have one that understands the biology in there and what good looking mouth looks like. That's a good thing. Cut out refined sugar and processed snacks because they feed that pathogenic bacteria. Ooh, this is a good one. Add mouth-friendly carbs back in, slowly starting with pulp-rich fruit. If you're coming off a keto or a low-carb diet, you might need to rebuild your microbiome, right? Because we need some of those. We need the fiber from the food, the plants of our life. And so sometimes the keto works for a lot of different issues, but you can't live in a world where you don't have plants because of this fiber also. So the fiber is what feeds your microbiome. And they're a live organism, right? So we want to make sure that we're feeding this live organism, or they'll have issues and die. Okay. So just remember that mouth friendly, what are they thinking? Or mouth friendly bacteria or carbs. So pulp-rich foods, that's interesting. Okay. Oh, potatoes, legumes, those can have some good digestive for, I guess, oral microbiome. That's kind of cool. Fix your gut to fix your mouth. We've talked about that. If you get a good gut microbiome, then a lot of times your mouth will actually come with it. So making sure that you're kind of focusing on that gut bacteria, making sure you get that into the right location. And okay, so that's what it is. Just remember that one is interesting. If anybody tries it, let me know on the oil pulling scenario. That's kind of cool. So I was saying I'd love to see somebody that would do that. Okay, so now we're going on to our last one. All right, let's do this last one. All right. I'm going to just kind of find one that is pretty good. Oh, I went over this in the 1% Tribe really quick. I want to do this one again because I think this is a good one to end on. Because I see it all the time, and I think we need to get back to this if we haven't. My kids love it when I dance. In fact, the look on my kids' faces, I didn't know that this shock and awe, like, Dad, stop look was really keep going, Dad. You're a fantastic dancer. And that's what happens there, especially when I do the moves of today, all these kid moves and all those kind of things. I'm just kidding. They hate it when I do this, but this was a cool article, and I want to end it on this because, the food dyes piss me off. All right, let's just talk that way. All right, so freeform dance provides health benefits comparable to traditional exercise. That's pretty cool. Freeform. So any kind of dance we're talking. A recent study found that freeform dancing matches or exceeds the intensity of jogging or cycling, making it a viable alternative for cardiovascular exercise. Unlike structured workouts, freeform dance requires no gym or equipment. It just makes it fun and sustainable way to stay active. Dancing with music significantly increases the heart rate, calorie burn, improving cardiovascular health while making exercise feel less strenuous and more enjoyable. Freeform dance engages multiple muscle groups while stimulating cognitive functions like coordination, balance, and reaction time, reducing the risk of falls and mental decline. Research highlights that dancing fosters social connections as well, enhances mood, and provides a structured form of self-expression, making it a powerful tool for lifelong health. This makes sense. This is totally worth it. One of my favorites is, and I was saying this on Sunday, some of my best athletes I've ever taken care of have been dancers, and it's intense. The balance between, so in that sport, the amount of balance in their entire body where there's not one area worked out, where their muscles are huge in one area and not in the other. I think dance is probably one of my favorites as far as overall. It kind of goes right up there with like swimming, because it's such a balanced approach overall, the whole body, right? And so getting into that, doing some kind of dancing is fantastic. Even just a little bit gets people moving. It's fantastic. The cardio, did you hear that? Like, instead of running, you could do dancing, right? For me, I always think cardiovascular is really tough because I'm not a big runner. My workout today, after right now, is to run, and it's not the favorite. I don't like it. It's not my favorite to do. However, I'll run, and some people really enjoy the running part. Dancing allows that to happen. For me, it's basketball. If I get to play some hoops and I'm playing a game, I could run 5 miles in that game and not even know it. You know what I mean? So find stuff that makes you not think that you're working out. Turn the radio way up in your house and dance while you're cleaning the kitchen. That's how you get your workout in. Some of these times, and you're efficient. You're cleaning the kitchen at the same time you're doing your cardio. So just remember that as you go. So hopefully you guys enjoyed tonight, the Whole Health Weekly. Remember this next week. If you have any topics, remember, get into the comment section and let me know, and then we can go over them. Or if you see me at the office or something, let me know if you want to hit up a topic. We can do that as well. I like doing it this way, where I get, information from you guys, in the holistic area of the topics of the week. But I like seeing those trends, and I want to see what people are, finding and using. So with that said, I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.